My name is Rita Graves. I'm 36 years old. At my father's will reading, the lawyer announced I was worth only 8%. My sister, who ghosted him for the entire 2 years he was dying, got 92%. My mother sat there nodding calmly, as if I deserved every single insult. I stood up, humiliated, ready to walk out. Then the attorney said quietly, "There's a second document, filed 48 hours before he died." My mother's face went white. They had no idea my father had been secretly recording every lie they told him. And what that document exposed would destroy the family they thought they had already broken. Now, before I take you back to how we got here, if this story is already hitting you in the chest, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It really helps these kinds of stories reach more people who need to hear them. And I'd love to know, drop a comment right now. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? Now, let me take you back. The conference room at Hammond and Associates smelled like old carpet and stale coffee. I arrived at exactly 2 o'clock on January 15th, 2026, 4 weeks after my father died. My mother and sister were already seated when I walked in. They'd come early. Power move. Neither of them stood when I entered. My mother sat at the head of the table, the spot my father always took when he was alive. Allison sat to her right, close, protective, like a bodyguard in a pencil skirt. They'd left me the chair furthest from the door, back to the window, isolated. "You're late, Rita," my mother said. I checked my phone. 2 o'clock exactly. She'd just come early to make me feel off balance. I sat down without responding. Attorney Wesley Hammond entered a moment later. Mid-60s, conservative suit, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked at me longer than he looked at them. A slight nod. Something in his expression I couldn't read. Then he opened a thick file folder and began. The formalities took 3 minutes. Estate of Daniel Thomas Graves. Total value $415,000. The house, 1426 Birch Lane, worth $285,000. Savings, $82,000. Life insurance, $48,000. All standard, all expected. Then came the distribution. Hammond's voice went completely flat, like he was reading a grocery list. "To my daughter Allison Margaret Graves, I leave 92% of my estate in recognition of her consistent presence and support during my final years." My mother squeezed Allison's hand. My sister's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "To my daughter Rita Catherine Graves, I leave 8% of my estate." 8%. I did the math automatically. $33,200. That's what I was worth. That's what my father thought of me. I looked down at the conference table. There was a small carving in the wood. Initials DG scratched into the corner. My father had probably done that years ago, sitting in the same room, going over his retirement paperwork or updating his will the first time, when things were normal, when I still existed to him. I stood up, gathered my bag. I wasn't going to cry in front of them. "Ms. Graves," Hammond said, "please wait. There's more." I paused. Hand on my chair. A second document was filed with this office on December 18th, 2025, 48 hours before Mr. Graves passed away. It supersedes the previous will under Minnesota law. My mother's voice went sharp. "That's impossible. Daniel couldn't even hold a pen by December." Hammond reached into the folder and pulled out a sealed envelope. The wax seal was still intact. Red, unbroken. A notary stamp across the front. Denise Whitmore. Date, December 18th, 2025, 3:15 p.m. This is a legally executed codicil, Mrs. Graves, properly witnessed and notarized. Mr. Graves was of sound mind at the time of signing. We have video documentation of a cognitive assessment administered that same day. He scored 28 out of 30 on a mini mental state examination, well above the legal threshold for testamentary capacity. Allison leaned forward. This is bullshit. He wasn't mentally competent. Hammond opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a folded document, a USB drive, and a sealed letter. He set the USB drive on the table between us. It was small, black, ordinary. There was a label on it in my father's handwriting, written in marker. For Rita only. Do not open without her present. My hands started shaking. Hammond looked directly at my mother. Mrs. Graves, your husband was quite clear about his intentions, and quite aware of certain circumstances that had transpired during his final months. My mother's fingers gripped the armrest of her chair, knuckles white. Allison looked at my mother. For the first time, I saw something break in my sister's perfect composure. Panic. Just a flash. Then it was gone. Hammond handed me the USB drive and the sealed letter. The letter was heavy. 3 pages at least. My father's handwriting on the envelope. To Rita. Private. I want to see that, Allison said. It's addressed specifically to Ms. Rita Graves, Hammond replied. Marked confidential and private. I'm not at liberty to share the contents without her consent. My mother stood abruptly. This entire codicil will be contested. Daniel was under duress. Or worse, manipulated. Rita hasn't been here in years. She shows up now, suddenly, when there's money involved. Hammond closed the folder. The codicil restores the estate distribution to a 50-50 split between both daughters. It also includes substantial supporting documentation. I've reviewed everything. The codicil is valid. Any contest will require you to present evidence of incapacity or undue influence. I assure you, Mrs. Graves, we have significant evidence to the contrary. I sat back down. The USB drive felt heavy in my hand. My mother was staring at me like I'd stolen something from her. But I hadn't stolen anything. I was just about to find out what had been stolen from me. I couldn't open the USB drive in that room, not with them watching. Not with my mother's eyes on me and my sister's carefully blank expression and the weight of whatever my father had left behind pressing down on all of us. I drove to the Holiday Inn where I was staying. I'd flown in from Portland 2 days before the funeral, stayed through the service, and kept the room because I knew there'd be legal matters to handle. My mother hadn't offered me my old bedroom, hadn't offered anything. The drive from Hammond's office took 15 minutes. Down Main Street, past the Caribou Coffee where I used to meet friends in high school, past the old movie theater that was still somehow operating, past the library where my father used to take me every Saturday when I was small. Lakewood, Minnesota. Population 8,500. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. Sadder. I'd driven past our house, 1426 Birch Lane, without meaning to. Just muscle memory. The lights were on inside. My mother's Subaru in the driveway. Christmas wreath still on the door even though it was mid-January. They'd had the funeral on January 3rd. Small service. I'd sat in the back. My mother and Allison in the front pew. I wasn't invited to sit with them. I kept driving. At the hotel, I sat on the bed with my laptop and plugged in the USB drive. 14 files. All audio. All labeled with dates. The first one was from November 24th, 2024. Thanksgiving. The last one was December 19th, 2025. The day before he died. My hands were shaking as I clicked on the first file. My father's voice filled the small hotel room. Rita, it's Dad. November 24th, Thanksgiving. I don't know if you'll ever hear this. Barbara doesn't know I'm recording. You didn't call today. That's what Barbara told me. She said you're too busy, working on a big project deadline. But I checked the phone log when she went to the kitchen to check on the turkey. You called. 3 times. 7 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m. She answered. She told you I was resting. Why did she tell me you didn't call? There was background noise, the rhythmic beeping of a dialysis machine, my father's breathing, slightly labored, the distant sound of a television, football game probably. I'm going to start keeping track. Something's not right here, I can feel it. The recording ended. I sat there staring at the laptop screen, my father's voice. I hadn't heard it in so long. Not since June of 2024 when I'd tried to visit him in the hospital and my mother had turned me away at the door, said he was too sedated for visitors. I'd believed her. I'd driven 28 hours from Portland and slept in the hospital parking lot, and then driven back without ever seeing him. I'd called him on Thanksgiving. I remembered that day clearly. I'd called 3 times trying to reach him. My mother answered every time. He's resting. Call back later. He's having a difficult day. I never called back the same day. I didn't want to be pushy, didn't want to overwhelm him, but he'd wanted me to call. He'd been waiting. I opened the second file. It's December 3rd. Your birthday was 2 days ago. December 1st. You turned 35. I asked Barbara this morning if you called. She said no. Said you must have forgotten because you're busy with work deadlines. But Joanna, that's the hospice nurse, she comes 3 times a week for my dialysis. She mentioned something yesterday. Said a woman called Tuesday morning asking about visiting hours, asking if I was up for phone calls. Barbara told her I wasn't taking calls that day. Rita, was that you? Why wouldn't Barbara tell me you called? My father's voice cracked slightly. The sound of papers rustling. I asked Joanna to start writing down if anyone calls or comes by asking about me. Barbara doesn't know I asked her to do this. I need to know I'm not going crazy. I remembered that call. My 35th birthday. I'd called at 9 in the morning. My mother answered. Not a good day, honey. He's exhausted from treatment. Maybe try again next week. I'd hung up feeling guilty for bothering them. I clicked on the third recording. December 10th. Joanna gave me the call log today. Handwritten. She keeps it in her personal notebook. Your name is on here 6 times in the past 2 weeks alone. November 28th. December 1st. 3 times that day, my God. You called 3 times on your birthday. December 4th. December 8th. 6 times, Rita. Barbara told me 2 days ago you haven't reached out since October, that you're probably busy with the holidays. Why would she lie? What does she possibly gain from this? The sound of paper being folded. My father hiding the log somewhere. I tried to confront her this afternoon. Asked her directly, "Are you sure Rita hasn't called?" She looked me right in the eye and said, "Daniel, she hasn't called in weeks. You need to accept that she has her own life now." Then she started crying. Said the medication is making me paranoid, that I'm imagining things. But I'm not confused about this, Rita. I'm not. The recording ended. I looked at the time. It was 11 p.m. I'd been listening for 3 hours. I'd barely moved. My coffee from the lobby had gone cold hours ago. My phone had 17 missed calls, 3 from Allison, 14 from my mother. I ignored them all. I clicked on the 4th recording. This one broke me. December 15th. I found them today. Barbara was at her book club. I went into her desk. I don't even know why. Looking for stamps, maybe. There's a drawer that locks. I know where she keeps the key. Same hiding spot for 30 years, under the jewelry box on her dresser. Inside the locked drawer, there were 4 cards. Your handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. Unopened. All addressed to me. All postmarked this month. December 2nd, 7th, 11th, 13th. 4 cards in 2 weeks. My father's breathing was uneven, catching. I opened the one on top. I'm sorry, Rita. I know it was meant to be private between us, but I had to see. You wrote, "Dad, I miss you so much. I think about you every day. Please call me when you feel strong enough. I'm here. I'm always here. Love. Rita. You. You thought I wasn't responding. You thought I didn't care enough to call back. There was a long silence on the recording. 23 seconds. I counted them. Then the sound of my father crying. Quiet. Muffled. Like he was trying not to make noise. Like he was ashamed. I'd sent those cards. I remembered writing every one. Sitting at my desk in Portland, trying to find the right words to tell my father I loved him without making him feel pressured to respond. I thought his silence meant he was too sick to write back. Too tired to engage. I thought I was being understanding. Patient. She's been doing this on purpose, my father said, voice steadier now. Colder. This isn't confusion or protection. This is deliberate. I don't know how long she's been doing it. I don't know why. But I need to fix this. I need to... God, I'm so tired. But I have to fix this. The recording cut off. I couldn't listen to any more. Not yet. It was past midnight. I hadn't eaten since morning. My hands were shaking. I needed to stop. To process. But I couldn't stop. I opened the fifth file. December 18th. I called Wesley Hammond this morning, while Barbara was at the grocery store picking up my medications. I told him I need to change my will. He's coming tomorrow. Barbara thinks he's just reviewing standard estate paperwork. Routine, annual check. She doesn't know what I'm actually doing. Wesley said I'll need to do a cognitive test on video. Prove I'm of sound mind. I said fine. Whatever it takes. I'm going to make this right, Rita. I should have seen what she was doing sooner. I should have protected you from this. But I'm going to fix what I can. My father's breath caught. Pain or emotion, I couldn't tell. The thing I need to tell you is... The recording cut off abruptly mid-sentence. I stared at the screen. 9 more files to go. 9 more pieces of evidence that my mother had systematically cut me off from my dying father. That she'd intercepted my calls. Hidden my cards. Told him I'd abandoned him. Told me he didn't want to hear from me. And while she was doing that, she was manipulating his will. Making sure I got 8%. Punishment for the absence she'd engineered. I pulled up my phone records. I'd kept detailed logs since going freelance. Tax purposes, business expenses, that sort of thing. I went back to March of 2024. Started counting. 67 calls over 18 months to my father's phone number. Most answered by my mother. A few went to voicemail. 6, only 6 out of 67, were actually answered by my father. And those conversations were brief, strained. My father sounded confused, tired, like he didn't really want to talk. I'd thought it was the illness, the medications. Now I understood. My mother was standing right there, listening, controlling. In November of 2024 alone, I called 9 times. 3 on Thanksgiving, 2 on his birthday, November 12th, 4 scattered through the month. Every single time my mother had an excuse. He's resting, he's with the nurse, he's having a bad day. Call back tomorrow. I never called back the same day. I was trying to be respectful, trying not to overwhelm a sick man. I opened a new document on my laptop and started creating a spreadsheet. Date, time, who answered, what they said. Cross-referenced with my father's recordings when he mentioned specific calls. The pattern was undeniable. Every major holiday, every birthday, every anniversary, I'd called. My mother had intercepted. My father was told I didn't care, and I was told he didn't want to hear from me. I remembered Christmas of 2023, before my father's health had completely crashed, before he'd gone into hospice. I'd flown home, bought a ticket, packed a bag, drove to the airport. I was going to surprise them. My mother met me at the front door of the house on Birch Lane. I can still see her expression. Surprised? Yes, but not pleased. Honey, I know you flew all this way, but your father specifically asked for a quiet Christmas this year. Just me and Allison. Too many people stress him out with his blood pressure issues. You understand, don't you? He'll feel terrible if he knows you're disappointed. Maybe come for New Year's instead, when he's feeling better? I'd stood in the driveway, suitcase at my feet, light snow falling, the rental car engine still running behind me. I could see the Christmas tree through the front window, lights on, wreath on the door. I heard voices inside, my father's voice, sounding normal, maybe even laughing. Someone asked, "Is someone at the door?" My mother turned her head, called back, "Just carolers, honey. I'll handle it." She'd looked back at me, gentle, concerned. You understand, right? I was 34 years old, not a child. If my father wanted a quiet Christmas, I should respect that. I got back in the rental car, drove to a hotel, flew back to Portland on Christmas Eve morning, sent my father a long email explaining I understood, hoped he felt better, told him I loved him. He never replied to that email. I thought he was too sick, too tired. Now I know, he probably never saw it. I kept scrolling through my memories. June of 2024. My father had an emergency hospitalization, kidney complication. I got a rare call from Allison. "Dad's in the ICU. It's serious." I didn't hesitate. I got in my car and drove. 28 hours straight. Portland, Oregon to Lakewood, Minnesota. 1,800 miles. I only stopped for gas. I arrived at Lakewood Regional Hospital at 4 in the morning. Found my mother in the ICU waiting room. "Rita, what are you doing here?" She seemed genuinely surprised. "I thought Allison told you we'd call if it got critical." "It is critical," I said. "He's in the ICU. He's sedated right now. Doctor's orders. No visitors except immediate family." "I am immediate family. I'm his daughter." "Of course you are, sweetheart." My mother's voice was soft, kind, reasonable. "But what I mean is, people he's specifically asked to see. He mentioned before they sedated him that he didn't want you to see him like this. It would break his heart knowing you drove all that way, and he's not even conscious to talk to you." I'd slept in my car in the hospital parking lot, went to the cafeteria at 6 a.m. to get coffee, saw Allison and my mother at a table near the windows, having breakfast, talking normally, laughing about something. Allison showed my mother something on her phone. They both smiled. I left before they saw me. Texted Allison from the road. "Heading back to Portland, tell Dad I love him." Allison replied 3 hours later. "He's stable. Don't worry." No mention of the fact that I'd driven 28 hours, no acknowledgement that I'd tried. I thought maybe Allison didn't know I'd been there, that my mother hadn't told her. Now I wonder if they both knew exactly what they were doing. I went further back. May of 2019, my father's retirement party from Lakewood High School. He'd been principal there for 23 years. I flew home for it. My mother had told me it was small family dinner only. Dad doesn't want a big fuss. When I walked into the house, my father's face lit up. "Rita, I didn't know you were coming." He looked at my mother. "Barbara, you didn't tell me Rita was flying in." My mother smiled. Smooth. Practiced. "I wanted to surprise you, honey. Rita and I planned it together." But I remembered that conversation with my mother. She'd specifically said not to mention it to Dad. "He'll get overwhelmed if he knows too many people are coming. Let's just keep it simple." I'd thought nothing of it at the time, just my mother managing my father's stress levels. But my father had looked at her strangely that night, just for a moment. Confusion, maybe suspicion, then it passed. He hugged me, said he was glad I came. That was 7 years ago. How long had this been going on? I opened the evidence folder that Attorney Hammond had included in the USB package. There were documents, screenshots, medical records, and a visitor log from Lakewood Hospice Care. The log was typed. Official. Visitor log. Patient. Daniel Graves. Period. November 1st, 2024 to December 20th, 2025. Primary caregiver. Barbara Graves. Daily, 24/7 residence. Family visitors. Allison Graves. 4 visits. November 18th, 2024. December 24th, 2024. March 15th, 2025. December 15th, 2025. Rita Graves. 0 visits. Community visitors. Pastor Glenn Morrison. 6 visits. Former colleagues. Various. 8 visits. Phone inquiry log. Calls requesting visit clearance. Rita Graves. 12 documented inquiries, all handled by primary caregiver. Note: all inquiries resulted in patient not ready for visits. Response: 0 visits in 14 months of hospice care. My sister, who got 92% for her consistent presence, visited 4 times in over a year. And there was a handwritten note attached from Nurse Joanna Caldwell, dated December 19th, 2025, the day before my father died. Mr. Graves frequently asked about his daughter Rita and expressed confusion about why she never visited or called. I documented multiple instances where patients seemed distressed about this perceived absence. Patient asked me several times to make sure Rita knows I wanted to see her. J. Caldwell, RN. I'd tried to visit 12 times, 12 documented phone calls asking about visiting hours, asking if I could come, if my father was well enough for visitors. Every single time my mother told the hospice staff he wasn't ready, and every single time she told him I hadn't called. I found my old journal from March of 2024. I keep notes on my phone, just thoughts, reflections. March 18th, 2024. Called Dad again today, 5th time this week. Mom answered every time, said he's exhausted from dialysis, sleeps most of the day now. Phone calls overwhelm him. She sounded tired too. I feel guilty adding to her stress. Maybe I'm calling too much. Maybe I'm being needy. He's sick. He needs quiet, not his daughter bothering him constantly. I should give him space. Let him reach out when he's ready. That's what a good daughter would do. Respect his needs over my need to hear his voice. I'd internalized the narrative completely. Blamed myself. Thought I was the problem. Next entry, April 3rd, 2024. Haven't called in 2 weeks. It feels better. Less like I'm overwhelming him. Less guilty. Mom texted yesterday, "Your father is having better days, less stressed." Maybe the space is working. Those 2 weeks I didn't call. My father was probably asking where I was, wondering why I'd stopped trying. It was 3 in the morning when I finally opened the 6th recording. I couldn't stop now. I needed to hear all of it. I needed to understand the full scope of what had been done. My father's voice was weaker on this one. The recording was from late December 2024, a month after he'd started documenting. I've been going through old things, boxes in the garage that Barbara doesn't know I can still get to. Found my desk calendars from when I was still at the high school. 2019, 2020, 2021. Your birthday is circled every year, June 1st. My handwriting. But next to most of them, in Barbara's handwriting, there's a note. R didn't call, working. R forgot. R busy. Rita, I remember now. You always called. Every single birthday, every single year. But Barbara would tell me you forgot, or that you were too busy, or that you'd call later and then never did. I believed her. I'd feel hurt, but I'd tell myself you had your own life in Portland. You were building your career. I shouldn't expect you to remember everything. The sound of old paper, pages turning. But you did call. You did remember. She just never told me. There was a sharp intake of breath. I found text messages, too, between Barbara and your sister. I'm forwarding them to Wesley. For evidence. Rita, I'm going to read some of them to you now. So you understand. So you know this wasn't an accident. His voice changed. Harder. Controlled anger. November 2024. Barbara to Allison. Rita called again. Third time this week. I told her your father is having bad days. Too confused for phone calls. She sounded hurt, but she accepted it. Allison's response. Good. Let her think he doesn't want to talk to her. Makes what comes later easier. My stomach dropped. December 2024. Barbara to Allison. Your father asked about Rita today. Why she hasn't visited. I told him she's busy with work. Probably stressed about money. Might visit after New Year's. Allison writes back. Perfect. String it along. Make him think she's always about to show up but doesn't. July 2025. This is the one that makes me sick. Allison to Barbara. When he goes, make sure the will reflects who actually showed up. Rita made her choice. Barbara responds. Already handled. New will signed last month. 92.8. She won't contest it. She's barely been around. No one would believe she cared. My father's voice cracked. They planned it, Rita. They planned to steal you from me. And then they planned to punish you for the absence they created. They were going to take your inheritance as payment for not being here, when they were the reason you weren't here in the first place. Long pause. Wesley Hammond has copies of all of this. Screenshots. Evidence. When you hear this recording, you'll know. I didn't forget you. I didn't stop wanting you here. You were stolen from me, and I won't let them get away with it. The recording ended. I sat in the dark hotel room. Outside, Lakewood was asleep. 4 a.m. The snow had started falling again. I could see Main Street from my window. Empty. Dark. The coffee shop where I was supposed to meet my sister tomorrow, today, actually, was closed. Dark windows. Everything looked like a postcard from a life I used to have, but I never really had it. That was the thing. The family I thought existed. The one where my mother was protective and my sister was successful, and my father was too sick to engage. That family was fiction. The real family was something else entirely. I needed to confront my sister. If you've ever had your entire understanding of your life rewritten in a single night, if you've ever discovered that the story you believed about yourself was authored by someone else's cruelty, leave a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I texted Allison at 8 a.m. We need to talk. Today, in person. The response came 3 minutes later. There's nothing to talk about. Dad made his choices. The codicil won't hold up in court. I wrote back. He made his choices after he discovered what you and Mom did. The 14 recordings he left me? He read your texts aloud. Every single one. The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Allison was deleting responses. Rewriting. Finally. Those were private conversations. About isolating me from our dying father. About manipulating his will. About letting him think I abandoned him. 2 minutes of silence. Then. Fine. Caribou Coffee on Main. 4 p.m. This changes nothing. I don't need a lawyer to have a conversation with my sister. We stopped being sisters the day you left Lakewood and never looked back. I arrived at the coffee shop at 3:55. Allison was already there. Corner table. She always arrived early. Control thing. She looked perfect. Designer winter coat. Burberry, I recognized the pattern. Hair professionally styled, manicured nails. Minimal makeup but flawless. She looked like she was coming from a normal workday at her corporate law firm in Minneapolis. Put together. Successful. Untouchable. I looked like I'd been awake for 3 days, because I had. Same jeans as yesterday, sweater I'd been wearing since the will reading, hair in a messy ponytail, dark circles under my eyes, no makeup. I sat down across from her. Neither of us said hello. You look terrible, she said. When's the last time you slept? About 48 hours ago, before I started listening to Dad explain how you helped Mom steal 2 years of his life from me. Allison took a sip of her coffee. Black. No sugar. I remembered when we used to get caramel lattes together when we were younger. Back when I still thought she was my sister. Before you start throwing accusations, she said, let me be clear. Everything Mom and I did was for Dad's well-being. You were never there. You don't know what the day-to-day was like. You don't get to judge us from 1,800 miles away. I pulled out my phone, set it on the table between us, opened the audio file, pressed play, volume low but audible. My father's voice filled the space between us. Let her think he doesn't want to talk to her. Makes what comes later easier. Those are your words, Allison. July 25th, 2024. To Mom. About me. About Rita. I let it play for 30 seconds, then stopped it. Allison's face didn't change. No shock, no shame, no denial. She just waited for me to finish. Then she took another sip of her coffee. That recording won't be admissible in probate court, she said calmly. Minnesota requires all-party consent for recordings. Wrong. One-party consent state. Dad could legally record any conversation he was part of. And these are his voice memos, his personal thoughts, completely legal. Hammond already confirmed. Something flickered in her eyes, not remorse, calculation. You want to know the truth? She set down her coffee cup. Fine. You were always Dad's favorite. Always. From the time we were kids. Rita's drawings on the fridge. Rita's school projects. Look what Rita made. I brought home straight A's. Good job, Allison. You brought home a B+ and a doodle. He hung it in his office. Do you know what that's like? Being the successful one, the responsible one, the one who did everything right, and still coming in second? Every single time? So you helped Mom cut me off from him while he was dying. That's your revenge for childhood jealousy? It wasn't revenge. Her hand wrapped tight around her coffee cup. Only physical tell that she wasn't as calm as she seemed. It was balance. For once, Mom and I got to be the ones who mattered, the ones he depended on. You got 35 years of being his favorite. We got his last 2 years. I slid the hospice visitor log across the table. Lakewood Hospice Care, official visitor log. Your name appears 4 times. November 18th, 2024. Your duty visit when he first went into hospice. December 24th, 2024. Christmas Eve, 2 hours. March 15th, 2025. December 15th, 2025. 1 week before he died. 4 visits, Allison, in 21 months. I tried to visit at least 12 times. I was blocked every single time. By Mom. With your full knowledge and encouragement. Her jaw tightened. I had a job, a life. I couldn't drop everything to sit by his bedside every day. Neither could I. I'm a freelancer. I don't get paid time off. But I tried. Over and over. You didn't try. You just helped Mom convince him I was the one who didn't care. And then you smiled when you thought you were getting 92%. The coffee shop was half full. Other patrons were starting to glance over. Our voices had risen slightly. Small town. People knew the Graves family. Knew my father had just died. This was gossip gold. Allison leaned forward, dropped her voice. The codicil was signed when he was barely conscious. 2 days before he died. Any lawyer will tear it apart. He scored 28 out of 30 on a mini mental state exam the day he signed it. On video. With a notary witness. And he recorded himself explaining exactly why he was doing it. Your lawyer is welcome to contest testamentary capacity. Mine will play all 14 recordings in open court. Every lie, every text. Every time he asked where I was and Mom told him I didn't care. You want that on public record? You want everyone in Lakewood to hear? Allison's eyes flashed. First real crack in her composure. You would destroy this family over money? I stood up, gathered my coat. You already destroyed this family. You just didn't expect consequences. Sign the settlement accepting the 50-50 split. Or we go to court and everyone in this town, all of Dad's friends, his former colleagues, everyone who knew him, everyone who respected him, will hear exactly what you did to him in his final months. Your call. I walked out. Didn't look back. My phone buzzed in the parking lot. Text from Allison. I'll never forgive you for this. I didn't respond. I deleted her contact. I was already grieving the loss of my sister. This just made it official. That night, I opened the remaining recordings, 7 through 14. Each one worse than the last. Recording 7, from late December 2024. My father describing a typical day. Dialysis, weakness, waiting for me to call, being told I was busy. I asked Barbara this morning if maybe Rita might come home for New Year's, start the year together. She said you told her you have plans with friends in Portland, a trip to the coast. You'd try to make it in spring. Did you say that, Rita? Because I can't imagine you talking about a coast trip while your dad is in hospice. It doesn't sound like you. In the background, Wheel of Fortune played on the television. We used to watch that together when I was a kid. Compete to solve the puzzle. I'm too weak to use the phone myself anymore. My hands shake too much to dial. Can barely hold it to my ear. Barbara has to dial for me. Put it on speaker. So I can't call you directly. I can't check if what she's telling me is true. I'm trapped in this house, in this body, dependent on someone who I'm starting to realize might not have my best interests at heart, or yours. Recording 8 was the one that destroyed me. January 2nd, 2025. My father had found more cards, 11 total, hidden throughout the house. 4 in her desk drawer, 3 in the back of her closet in a shoebox labeled Donate. 2 in the garage in a box of old paperwork. 1 in the kitchen junk drawer under warranty papers. 1 in the mailbox. Must have just arrived yesterday. All addressed to me, all from you, June 2024 through last week. His voice shook. I opened every single one tonight, read every word. Rita, there is nothing performative about these cards, nothing obligatory. You wrote about missing me, about wanting to hear my voice, about memories. You remembered when we built that bookshelf together when you were 12, how we couldn't figure out the instructions and ended up with an extra shelf. You wrote, I still have that bookshelf in my apartment, Dad. It's crooked and weird and perfect, like us. I did still have that bookshelf. It was in my living room in Portland. Books about illustration, art supplies on the crooked shelf. You love me. I know you do. You've been trying to reach me this whole time. Then the sound of my father crying, unrestrained, full sobs. A minute of just heartbreak playing through cheap laptop speakers in a Holiday Inn in Minnesota. I confronted Barbara tonight, showed her the cards, asked why she kept them from me. She said she was protecting me, that your words were performative, that you only wrote them out of guilt, not real feeling, that reading them would hurt me more than help me. Rita, I've read them 5 times each now. There's nothing fake here. You love me. I know you do. Recording 9, January 15th, 2025. Attorney Wesley Hammond's visit. Wesley came today. Barbara was at her book club. Thursdays, 1 to 4. Regular as clockwork. He brought Denise Whitmore, the notary. They made me take a cognitive test on video, asked me questions. What's today's date? Who's the president? Count backwards from 100 by sevens. Draw a clock showing 3:15. I did it all. Scored 28 out of 30. Wesley said anything over 20 is legally competent. Then we wrote the codicil. Restores everything to 50-50. Equal. Which is what it should have been all along. My father's voice was firm, clear. I wish I could do more. I wish I could give you back the time. But I can't. I can only make sure you're protected legally and make sure the truth comes out. Recording 13. December 10th, 2025. 10 days before he died. His voice was barely a whisper now. Joanna says I have days, maybe a week. Kidneys shut down completely. I'm not in pain. They have me on medication for that. But I'm very tired. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. I asked Joanna to call you when it happens. She promised she'd try. Wrote your number in her personal phone. But I know Barbara will interfere. So I'm telling you now, Rita, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. You didn't get to say goodbye in person. That wasn't your fault. You tried. 67 phone calls, 12 cards, multiple visits attempted. I have evidence of all of it. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough sooner, but I'm brave enough now. I couldn't listen to the final recording yet. Recording 14, December 19th, 11:47 p.m., 33 hours before he died. I needed to prepare myself. It was 4 in the morning. I opened my father's letter instead. 3 pages, handwritten. His fountain pen, blue ink. The same pen he'd used to grade papers for 23 years. Dear Rita, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you now know what your mother and sister did. I want to start by saying, I failed you. Not at the end. I failed you for years before this. I saw signs, small things. Barbara's comments about you being too busy or focused on your career. The way she'd discourage me from calling you, saying I should let you live your life. The way Allison would change the subject whenever I brought you up. I saw these things, and I told myself I was imagining it. I chose peace over conflict. I chose to believe Barbara when she said I was being oversensitive. I chose to trust that you were just busy, just building your life in Portland, just away. That was cowardice. I should have called you directly more often. Should have questioned why our relationship seemed to be fading when I knew that wasn't who you were. But I didn't want to cause problems. Didn't want to make Barbara upset. Didn't want to believe that the woman I'd been married to for 40 years could be capable of this kind of systematic cruelty. But I want you to understand something. Even when I thought you weren't calling, weren't visiting, had moved on with your life, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped thinking about you. Every birthday, every holiday, I'd remember. You were never forgotten, Rita. Never unloved. You were stolen from me. And that theft doesn't erase the love. My hands were shaking. There was a coffee stain on page 2. My father must have been drinking coffee while writing this. His handwriting got shakier toward the end. But still readable, still unmistakably his. I can't give you back the time. No amount of money can do that. The settlement is 50-50 because that's fair. That's what it should have always been. But the real inheritance isn't the money. It's the truth. Don't let them rewrite this history. You didn't choose absence. It was forced on you. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I can't undo what was done. But know this. You were loved. You were wanted. You were never the problem. I'm proud of the artist you've become. Proud of the person you are. Proud that you chose to create beauty in the world even when the world wasn't always beautiful to you. I love you. Always, Dad. I folded the letter carefully. Put it back in the envelope. set it on the nightstand next to the fishing drawing I'd retrieved from his office. The one I drew when I was 7. The one he'd kept framed behind his desk for 29 years. Then I opened recording 14. My father's voice was so weak I had to turn the volume all the way up. Rita, it's very late. December 19th. 11:47 p.m. Barbara's asleep downstairs. I wanted to talk to you one last time, even if it's just into a microphone, into the dark. I'm going to try to say everything I need to say. I don't know how much time I have. I'm very weak, but my mind is clear. That's a gift. Clarity at the end. Long pause. Labored breathing. I've been thinking about memories, specific ones. I want to tell you some. I remember when you were 7. You drew me a picture of us fishing, even though we'd never been fishing. Not once. You drew it anyway. Me and you in a little boat, holding fishing poles, smiling. I asked you, should we go fishing for real? And you said, we already did. In my picture. That's when I knew you saw things differently than other people. Better. You made the world better by imagining it better. That's a gift, Rita. That's art. The sound of him trying to catch his breath. I kept that drawing. It's in my office, behind my desk, framed. I looked at it every day for 29 years. I remember your high school graduation. You didn't want to walk, said it was performative, but I convinced you. I said some moments need to be marked. You wore your cap backwards, had to fix it before they'd hand you the diploma. You rolled your eyes, but you did it. For me, I was so proud. Another long pause. I remember the day you told us you were moving to Portland. 23 years old, accepted to that illustration program. Your mother thought you should stay in Minnesota, get a real job. I told her, Rita's art is real. Let her go. Let her build something. You hugged me so tight, whispered, thank you for seeing me. I said, you're easy to see. I should have kept seeing you, should have kept looking when things got murky. That's my failure, not yours. His breathing was getting worse, wet sounding. I'm running out of strength. Need to say the important part. Rita, forgive me. Not for dying. I can't help that. Forgive me for not protecting you, for being weak, for choosing peace over truth for too long. Forgive. The sound of a door opening downstairs. Footsteps on the stairs. My father's voice, suddenly urgent, whispered, she's coming. I have to. The recording cut off. That was it. That was the last thing my father ever said to me. An interrupted goodbye. Even in his final words, my mother had found a way to cut him off, to control the narrative. He died 2 days later, December 20th, 3:42 in the morning. I was in Portland, asleep, dreaming about something I can't even remember now. And he was in Lakewood, taking his last breath, probably saying my name. Or maybe not. I'll never know, because I wasn't there. Not because I chose to be absent, but because my absence had been chosen for me. Barbara's attorney filed the contestation 3 days after the will reading. Standard legal boilerplate. Grounds, diminished capacity, suspicious timing, undue influence by Rita Graves, who allegedly manipulated her father from a remote location. They were trying to flip the entire narrative, paint me as the manipulator, my mother as the protective caregiver just trying to shield her confused husband from his opportunistic daughter. Wesley Hammond called me. They're arguing that your father's anger at Barbara was a symptom of confusion, not justified response. They're pathologizing his clarity. We need to respond aggressively. The response was simple. Video evidence. My father sitting up in his hospice bed taking the mini mental state examination, answering questions. Oriented to time and place, 10 out of 10. Registration, 3 out of 3. Attention and calculation, 5 out of 5. Language, 8 out of 9. Total score, 28 out of 30. Legal standard for testamentary capacity in Minnesota, score above 20. My father had scored 28. Then there was Nurse Joanna Caldwell's sworn affidavit. 3 pages. Detailed, professional, devastating. I served as primary hospice nurse for Daniel Graves from November 1st, 2024 through December 20th, 2025. Regarding patient's mental capacity, Mr. Graves remained cognitively intact throughout his care. While he experienced physical deterioration, his mental faculties remained sharp until the final 24 hours. He was oriented, conversational, capable of making informed decisions. Regarding family dynamics, Mr. Graves frequently inquired about his daughter Rita. He expressed confusion about why she did not visit or call. On multiple occasions, I personally logged phone calls from Rita Graves requesting visit clearance or phone access. These requests were consistently denied by primary caregiver Barbara Graves. However, patient regularly asked me, "Has Rita called? Is she coming?" This disconnect raised concerns. On December 19th, 2025, Mr. Graves specifically asked me to ensure Rita knew I loved her and wanted her here. He was lucid, insistent, emotionally coherent. My mother's team tried to argue the nurse had been manipulated, that she'd developed bias. Hammond's response, "Are you seriously arguing that a licensed hospice nurse with 20 years of experience can't distinguish between patient wishes and caregiver restrictions?" They offered a settlement, 70-30 split instead of 50-50. Confidentiality clause, no public disclosure of the recordings. The offer came the same day Joanna's affidavit landed. They were scared. Hammond asked what I wanted to do. What happens if we reject this and go to court? The recordings become public record. Every lie, every manipulation. Anyone can access them. Your mother and sister will be completely exposed, but it will also mean your family's private dysfunction becomes public knowledge. Small town like Lakewood, everyone will know. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No settlement, full codicil enforcement, 50-50 split. And I want those recordings entered into the probate file as supporting documentation. I want a paper trail of truth that can't be erased. Hammond smiled slightly. Your father would be very proud of you right now. Then let's make sure everyone knows why he changed his will. The final call came a week later, Hammond on speakerphone with my mother's attorney, Patrick Henley. "Patrick, my client has rejected your settlement offer. We're proceeding to formal hearing. I wanted to give Mrs. Graves one final opportunity to withdraw her contestation before we submit all evidence to public record. Wesley, your client is making a mistake. This will destroy her relationship with her family." Her family was destroyed when Mrs. Graves systematically isolated her from her dying father. We have 14 recordings, 67 documented phone calls, 11 intercepted cards, hospice logs, text messages between Barbara and Allison planning this isolation, and video proof of Mr. Graves's testamentary capacity. Mrs. Graves, we have 14 recordings. Would you like the court to hear them? All of them? Including the one where Mr. Graves reads text messages between you and Allison planning to manipulate his will? Long silence on the phone. Then Henley quietly, "I need to confer with my client." The call ended. Hammond turned to me. "They're going to fold. No one wants those recordings in public record, not even Barbara." He was right. 2 days later, they withdrew the contestation, agreed to the 50-50 split. My mother would keep the house but had to buy out my half of its value. I got the cash and insurance, $207,500. There was one more thing I needed to do. I requested a private meeting with my mother. No lawyers, just us. She agreed. I think she thought she could still manipulate me, still make me see things her way. We'd been doing this dance for 36 years. Why would now be different? I chose the location, Lakewood Cemetery, my father's grave. We met on a Saturday afternoon in late February. Cold, but clear. The snow had mostly melted. Early spring trying to push through. My mother arrived exactly on time. We stood on opposite sides of the headstone. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. She broke first. I know you're angry. I understand. But you have to understand what it was like. Watching him deteriorate every day, managing medications, dialysis appointments, his pain. You were in Portland living your life. I was here, in the trenches, alone. You weren't alone. I tried to be here, 67 times. Phone calls aren't the same as presence, Rita. You have no idea what real caretaking involves. Stop. My mother's hands were bare. No gloves despite the cold. Wedding ring still on her left hand. Same hands that had answered my calls and lied. You don't get to rewrite this. Not here. Not standing over his grave. I have his voice on recording contradicting every word you're saying. Try again. And this time, try the truth. I pulled out my phone, played part of recording 6. My father's voice, listing the lies, the intercepted calls, the hidden cards. November 24th, 2024, Thanksgiving. I called at 7 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m. You answered all 3 times. Told me Dad was resting. That night, he recorded himself saying you told him I didn't call at all. Why did you lie to both of us? My mother started to respond. I kept going. December 1st, my birthday. I called asking about visiting hours. You said he wasn't up for visitors. He waited for me all day. Why did you tell him I forgot? He was confused. December 15th. He found 4 of my cards in your desk. Unopened. He read them. Cried. Why did you hide them? I played another clip. My father's broken voice. She stole my daughter from me. My mother flinched. For the first time, her careful facade cracked. You don't know what it was like, she said quietly, watching him love you more. For 40 years. You were always his favorite, his special girl, his artist. I gave him 2 daughters, kept his house, supported his career, stood by him, and he looked at me like I was adequate. But you he adored. Do you know what that does to a person? To never be enough? There it was. The truth underneath everything. So you took the only thing you could control? His final years. You made sure this time, you were the one who mattered. You made sure I couldn't compete because I wasn't there. I didn't set out to hurt you. Yes, you did. You wanted to matter more than me. And the only way you could do that was to erase me completely. You got your wish. His last 2 years, you were the center of his world. You were all he had. But it didn't make him love you more. It just made him die thinking I'd abandoned him. I looked at her directly. You killed him twice, Mom. Once, when his body gave out. Once when you murdered his belief that his daughter loved him. There's no making that right. She was crying now. Real tears. I'm still your mother. Someday you'll understand. No, you are a woman who gave birth to me. A mother doesn't steal her child's goodbye. Sign the settlement. Accept the codicil. 50-50 split. Or we go to court and every recording gets entered into public record. Every person in this town who respected Dad will hear exactly what you did. Your choice. You would humiliate me like that? You humiliated yourself. I'm just refusing to help you hide it. You have 48 hours. I walked away. Didn't look back. She signed 2 days later. The legal papers arrived on March 8th, 2026. Settlement executed. Estate divided equally. No contact provision in place. Barbara Graves and Rita Graves agreed to maintain no contact except through legal representatives. I signed with my father's fountain pen, the one I'd taken from his office. It was done. I flew back to Portland the next day. In my suitcase, the USB drive with his recordings, his letter, the fishing drawing, his pen, one photo of us from 2018, both smiling, happy, before everything fell apart. I set up a small corner in my new apartment. Not a shrine, just acknowledgement. The photo, the drawing, his coffee mug, one of the cards he never got to read, still sealed. 3 weeks later, I went to therapy for the first time. The therapist asked what I was grieving. Multiple losses, I said. I'm grieving my father, obviously, but not just his death. I'm grieving the 2 years we didn't get, the conversations we should have had, the goodbye I should have been able to say. I'm grieving the relationship that was stolen. I'm also grieving my mother and sister, not because they died, but because I finally see who they really were. I'm grieving the family I thought I had. Turns out it was fiction. What did you lose that the money can't restore? Time. The chance to tell him I understood, that I forgave him. The chance to hear him say my name one more time. Those last words he was trying to say on the final recording, the one that got cut off. I'll never know what he wanted to say. Some losses can't be recovered. They're just permanent. Late March, I made one final trip to Minnesota, back to Lakewood Cemetery, brought my laptop. The weather was warmer now, snow gone, crocuses beginning to bloom near the headstone. I sat on the cold ground and opened the laptop. Hey Dad, it's me. I came back. The settlement's done. Everything's final. You got your wish. The money is split equally. The codicil held up. The truth is on legal record now. Mom knows. Allison knows. The lies are documented. I opened recording 14, the final one. I wanted to play this for you one last time. Your last words. The ones that got interrupted. I've listened to it maybe 50 times. But I think this should be the last time. For both of us. I pressed play. My father's weak voice filled the quiet cemetery. The goodbye that was stolen. The forgiveness he was trying to ask for. The love he was trying to express. Forgive me for not protecting you. For being weak. For choosing peace over truth for too long. Forgive. The door opening. The recording cutting off. I let the silence sit for a full minute after it ended. I forgive you, Dad. I wish I could have told you in person, but I'm telling you now. You weren't weak. You were trapped. And you found a way to protect me anyway. That took courage. I'm going to delete this recording now. Not because I'm ashamed, not because I want to forget, but because some conversations are just for us. The legal copies exist. The truth is documented. But this one, your voice saying goodbye, that's not for courtrooms. That's ours. I opened the file location, right-clicked, move to trash, confirm permanent deletion. The file disappeared. I closed the laptop, stood, touched the headstone, cold granite, smooth. I love you, I miss you, and I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I drove to the Minneapolis airport. Flight to Portland at 6 p.m. In my bag, his pen, his letter, the fishing drawing, one photo. In my heart, complicated grief, hard-won truth, and the certainty that being loved, even imperfectly, even too late, matters. On my laptop, in a secured legal file, recordings 1 through 13, evidence that truth existed. In the cemetery, my father's voice, released. No longer recorded, just memory now, the way it should be. I'm 36 years old. I inherited $207,000. I inherited my father's belief in me, his quiet support, his final act of protection. But most of all, I inherited the truth. Some things you can't get back. The time, the conversations, the chance to hold someone's hand while they're dying, the opportunity to say the words that matter before it's too late. But you can refuse to let lies stand. You can demand that truth be documented. You can draw boundaries with people who stole from you. You can grieve what was taken and still build something new. My father died thinking I'd abandoned him. That's a wound that will never fully heal. But he also died knowing, in his final weeks, in his final moments of clarity, that he'd protected me, that he'd left evidence, that he'd made sure the truth would survive even if he didn't. That has to be enough, because it's all I have. And I'm learning, slowly, that sometimes all you have is still worth holding on to.